Oh, tear stains on my path. I'm trying to forget. Don't know what I wanna do. 4 days count. I've been laying is there. Hasn't been the mirror so I can't feel this way again. But I think you were there. My heart's what got me here. So hurt. What's for me to fall? I give you my word. You put your trust in me.
Three of Milwaukee's biggest storylines are colliding tonight. We're going to be straight with you on all of them, including one where the honest answer isn't good news. David Crowley just got his first real number against Tom Tiffany since the primary. The Bucks front office finally showed its hand for the next season. The Brewers are quietly building a fortress at the top of the NL Central. And we owe you an update on the state fair accountability letters as well. One that's about being transparent with you, not about a countdown clock. Let's get into it. This is the Urban News Journal, independent, objective, and unafraid. Hey, welcome, people, my people, my people. I'm Marcus Hart. This is the Urban News Journal, independent, objective, and unafraid. If this is your first time joining us here tonight, hit us with a subscribe button, hit us with a like, drop a comment in the comment sections to let me know that you're alive and you're not a bot. Bot. That's B-O-T. Bot. Certain words are just so hard to say. So I'm going to take off these headphones. Let's start right away. Let's get into it, man. Let's not waste any time. I want to start with the state fair. Let's start with something you don't hear a lot of news outlets say on camera. But, once again, I owe you guys a correction. So here's the recap for anybody just joining us. Okay. If you just joining us, here's the recap. August 17th, the final night of the Wisconsin State Fair, a fight broke out in the crowd. 7 people were arrested. 1 officer was hurt. 5 days later, on August 21st, we sat down and we wrote formal accountability letters to 7 different offices that had a hand in that night. Wisconsin State Fair Park, the governor's office, the Milwaukee County executive, the West Allis mayor, the West Allis PD, and also the West Allis alderperson for the Fair Park District. And one more. There's one more. Let me just put it back up. The other one, oh, you probably can't see that because I got it. Let me fix that for you. And just you know, the other one was the state's own Office of Open Government. And what did we do? We asked every one of them the same simple question. What happened and what's being done about it? We wrote it up as a formal demand. Yes, it was a formal demand. And that formal demand was demanding for a public after action report. And we said we would start a public countdown once those letters were in the mail. But here's the honest part. Those letters are still sitting right here, printed, addressed, ready to go. They're over there somewhere. They're here. Regardless, they're here. And they haven't been mailed yet. Certified mail with a return receipt runs real money. Times 7 separate offices. And that wasn't sitting free in the account this week. So instead of standing up here and pretending the clock is running, that isn't, we're telling you exactly where things stand right now. What is real? 5 days before we even wrote those letters on August 19th, we sent direct press inquiries by email. No cost, no excuse. To the State Fair Park press desk and to the West Allis PD, asking directly for comment on what happened that night. Neither one had responded. That part of the record is real, folks. It's dated and it's still open. So here's where we land tonight. The accountability push isn't dead. I don't want you to think that. It's not dead at all. It's just simply delayed. All right? It is delayed. And we're not going to hide that from you at all. Okay? And I'm not being a Dr. Umar Johnson here. I'm not being Dr. Umar, I promise you. Promising you that a school gonna be built and then a school don't get built. No, we're not doing that. Okay. So getting those 7 certified letters mailed this week is now a concrete, fundable goal. If you're a Milwaukee business that believes in what independent local accountability journalism actually costs to run, postage, certified mail, the boring, unglamorous parts of doing this right, that's a real way to be part of this story, not just to watch it. We will have more on that in our sponsor segment tonight. And once those letters are actually in the mail, not before, that's when the real countdown starts, ladies and gentlemen. And we will tell you the exact day it begins. Okay. Thank you guys so very much. Once again, if you're just joining, it's your first time joining, hit us with a like, drop a comment in the comments section, share this up with someone who needs to hear it, needs to see it. And also, if you ain't subscribed, subscribe. Okay. Gotta subscribe. Now let's get over to the governor's race, and there's a new number worth putting in context, not just repeating. So a new head-to-head poll of likely voters has Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley leading U.S. Representative Tom Tiffany by roughly 4 points. This is the first real head-to-head we had the opportunity to look at since the primary wrapped up. So let's be careful with it. This is a new poll, not the polls. And early general election numbers move a lot between now and election day. So we're not going to sit up here. We're not going to treat it one poll after another like it settles anything. This thing is going all the way into November gets here. Best believe that. But here's the angle, though. Here's the Milwaukee angle. Here's why it matters to you. David Crowley isn't some name on the ballot to us. He's our Milwaukee County's own sitting executive, running a statewide campaign in the middle of the exact same week. We're talking about state fair accountability on land the county has a real relationship with, of course. So when we talk about what a Crowley win or a Tiffany win means, we're not talking about it in the abstract way. We're talking about it in a way of how can we see it? Who's setting the tone on county budget decisions? Who's next in line for county executive if Crowley wins and moves up? And who has a seat at the table on how something like State Fair Park governance actually gets handled going forward? Since that's a state-run entity sitting on a land that touches the county, of course, it's within the county. So we are keeping this one close and tracking it as the numbers come in, not just as one poll comes in. Okay? That's for sure. That is for sure. Once again, hit us with a like, subscribe, follow us. We are on all social media platforms at Urban News Journal. That's where you can find us. Very easy. All is one word. We except Twitter. Twitter is UNJ underscore news. Okay, so that's the only exception. Somebody has taken our name already. Hmm. Let's move forward, shall we? So let's talk basketball a little bit, okay? Because the Bucks front office just showed its hand for the season ahead. And Monday, we only had the headline. Tonight, we got more specifics. The full 2026 through 2027 regular season schedule is out. Head coach Tyler Jenkins has finalized his complete coaching staff, and the Summer League roster is locked in. Here's what actually matters to you as a fan. When does this team tip off like that? Or what are the marquee early season matchups worth circling back on your calendar? And what do these coaching hires tell us about the system and style Jenkins is building around? Well, we're not skipping past this at all. You see, when a franchise builds out a new staff, who gets hired actually matters beyond just basketball. Yes. We are looking at who's on that coaching staff, including the black assistant coaches and front office hires who are part of this new era, because representation in these rooms is part of that story too, not a footnote to. Okay, so I'm excited for the season. Even though we not 100% sure how much of a winning team we're gonna have this year, but as always, I'm always rooting for the Bucks. It's the home team. I'm a homer. I fall down with the ship. Even when other people jump off the ship. So I'm not gonna do that. Not gonna do that at all. That's for sure. All right, on to something else. So while everybody's national sports conversation is stuck on Chicago and LA, let's talk about what actually happened quietly in our own backyard. The Brewers are sitting in the driver's seat right now in the NL Central post trade deadline, and it has not been loud enough nationally for how real it is. Quick and simple on the magic number for anybody who doesn't follow that closely. Is the combined number of Brewers wins and second place team losses needed before the division is mathematically locked up. It's not just about making the playoffs up this point. It's not about that. It's about seeding. It's about home field advantage. It's about the difference between a first round exit and a real run. This is a small to mid market team quietly building bigger market rivals. And that's a Milwaukee Pride story as much as it's a baseball story as well. And for me, once again, I'm deeply ingrained in our teams here. And the Brewers got a special part of my heart because that was my first employer. When I was 13, I got hired at the old Milwaukee County Stadium before they tore it down. And then, we had the big blue incident when they were building the new one. Um, yeah, I was around for that, you know. I remember it clear as day. And, it's something, man. It's something because like I think about it all the time, like, man, that could have been me. I could have been inside of that building when Big Blue came crashing down, or I could have been nearby and been very up close and personal with it. But you know, we have to look back on these things and always use them as stories to pass down to our kids. Um, it's good to be able to just connect ourselves with things of this city. That's for sure. So, moving on forward, moving on up. So let's head over to something else. This next one, I'm not reading it to you like a headline. I'm talking to you about it like it's a like I am a veteran. So I'm talking in the lens of a veteran because that's what this is all about. It's about, you know, um, getting out stories like this. And who better to put a story out like this and cover it than yours truly? Okay. So make sure you are liking, make sure you are subscribing, make sure you are commenting on the live stream. You like how I said that? The live stream. So the VA's Milwaukee Mental Health Summit, right? Okay. So the Mental Health Summit this cycle is putting a direct spotlight on African American veterans, and that overlaps two things we cover every week on this show: Veterans Affairs and mental health. And honestly, those two beats are the same beat more often than people want to admit. I did 20 years. I did 20 years being retired. It's just about been 20 years since I've been retired from the army as a 92 Alpha. And I can tell you firsthand that the hardest part for a lot of us, and I just skip past 92 Alpha like I expect everybody to know what that is. So a 92 Alpha was my job MOS, so MOS stands for Military Occupational Specialty. I was a supply clerk, so that's what the 92 Alpha is supply, anybody working in supply. All right. So now that we got that cleared up, let's go back to the story. So it's actually, so it's rough when us as veterans have to, come across resources that we didn't know exist. It's actually walking through the door, also that kind of separates us from knowing what exists, knowing what's available to us. So if you're a veteran watching right now, or you're a loved one who's a loved one of a veteran, family member, friend, here's what I want you to do. Look up VA Milwaukee's mental health services page, and if you are in Wisconsin, look at what beater Wisconsin has locally too. This isn't a headline for me to read and move past. It's a real resource, and I want you to actually use it. And if you want more of this kind of conversation outside of the news format, that's exactly what the Warrior Mandate on Substack is for. It's where I go deeper on stuff like this weekly, connected to everything we build here at Transform You. So make sure you do check that out. Um, so no sponsor read tonight. Okay, we don't have any sponsors to read. So let me use this minute a different way. Everything you just heard, the State Fair update, Crowley and Tiffany, the Bucks, the Brewers, the VA Summit, plus the stories we didn't get to tonight. It lands in your inbox twice a week, Tuesday and Friday. It's free, no catch. And if what you heard about those accountability letters sitting unmailed bothered you the way it bothered me writing this script, that's exactly the kind of a thing a local sponsor stepping up can actually fix. The links for that is in the description. You can also see it on the screen here. I have it on the screen here as well. Where there's a QR code there. I'm also going to pop it right here in the left hand corner for a scooch for a scooch of a second. All right. So there that is. So there was some questions, but I don't have them in front of me though. Some people send me some questions out there, and I don't I'm sorry, if you're watching, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I don't not have your questions in front of me, because I was gonna answer them on air, that was my plan. So I'm just gonna write back directly to those individuals. They made some comments, with questions, on Nextdoor, on the, platform Nextdoor. Mhm. We are there too. So we are on Nextdoor for sure. You can definitely find Urban News Journal on Nextdoor. So Friday, when Friday comes around, we'll be back with the real update on the state fair letters. Hopefully, telling you they're finally in the mail. We'll have more on Crowley and Tiffany if any new numbers move, and we'll keep tracking the Bucks and the Brewers as both seasons build towards something. This is a very short stream tonight. Wednesdays, I tend to keep it pretty light. I tend to not divulge more into life stories or overwhelm you guys in the middle of the week. You guys need your energy to make it to Friday. So when you make it to Friday, I give a little bit more of of a extensive show. So be on the lookout for that. Be on the lookout for that. Be on the way to seeing us again on Friday. So before we sign off though, I want to leave you with something outside of the news cycle, that's for sure. Um, we told you the truth tonight about something that didn't go the way we planned. Those letters aren't mailed yet. And I could have dressed that up differently, but that's not how I was raised. And it's not how this outlet is built. Proverbs 12:22 says the Lord delights in people who deal truthfully. And that's the standard I'm holding myself to on this show. It doesn't matter if the news is good or not. So if you're watching this tonight carrying something that didn't go the way that you planned either, was it a setback? Was it a delay? You know, something you're waiting on that hasn't come through yet? I want you to hear this from me directly from the bottom of my heart. Delayed is not the same as denied. We're still getting those letters mailed, so keep moving anyhow. Anyway, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. That's Galatians 6 and 9. And it applies to a newsroom trying to hold power accountable just as much as it applies to whatever you're carrying tonight. Now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I want to thank you guys for watching. Thank you for holding us accountable to being honest with you. And I'll leave you the way I always do: independent, objective, and unafraid. God bless you. And we will see you, good folks, on Friday.